Hello guys, today I'll be ranking the Soundgarden albums. And yeah, Soundgarden, definitely one of the best bands to come from that grunge movement. And Chris Cornell is my favorite singer from that era or from that time. And also, the album that's at the top for me of this ranking is actually one of my favorite albums of all time. So let's go ahead and dive into this. We're going to be going from worst to best. So let's go ahead and get started. Of course, it's just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off with King Animal, their latest album. And this album to me just isn't as memorable as their other albums and doesn't have as strong as replay value as the other albums, at least in my opinion. And that's basically why it's at the bottom. It's a good album, but in general, it just doesn't grab me as much, again, as their other albums. But Been Away Too Long and By Crooked Steps are pretty solid songs, though. But next in my ranking is Ultra Mega OK. I can understand why someone would put this album at the bottom, but I don't know. This album has some pretty good stuff, in my opinion, like Flower, All Your Lies, Beyond the Wheel, Smokestack Lightning, which I think is kind of an underrated song. But yeah, this album, it's raw, sometimes heavy, and overall I think it has some enjoyable tracks, which is part of why I put this album above King Animal. And I've just found myself returning to this album a bit more. But next we have the album Down on the Upside. And this is one of those albums for me where, now this is just my personal opinion, but this is one of those albums where I think the singles are definitely stronger than the B-sides or the non-singles, however you want to put it. But Pretty Noose and Blow Up the Outside World and Burn to My Hand are probably my favorites on the album. Burn to My Hand probably being my number one favorite on the album. Maybe one of their best songs too, in my opinion. I've always really liked the instrumentation in general in that track, such as in the verses. But you get to the second half where the album starts to lose me a little bit, but none of this, I wouldn't say that any of the songs on the album are bad, but I just find myself enjoying the albums in front of it a little bit more in general, especially with what's at the top too. But anyways, next in my ranking is Louder Than Love. This album definitely has its share of bangers, and the riffs are pretty solid here too, especially with certain songs like Loud Love or Power Trip. But yeah, some of my favorites on the album are really the first four tracks and track number 7, Loud Love. Those are probably my favorites on the album. Full on Kevin's Mom is pretty good, and Big Dumb Sex is not bad either. But yeah, I think the first half is a bit stronger than the second half, but the second half, again, does have its share of pretty decent songs, though, such as, again, Big Dumb Sex. But Loud Love is probably my favorite of the singles, and also in this album, you hear a little bit of Black Sabbath influence, such as in the song Power Trip, which is a part of why it's one of my favorites on the album, because I am a Black Sabbath fan. I even like the Tony Martin era too, which is an era from Black Sabbath that not many people talk about, but that era definitely has its share of pretty great songs. But anyways, back to this album. All around, it's just an enjoyable album, and it definitely, in my opinion, has some of their best work. But anyways, next we got Superunknown. Many people put this album at the top, but of course, for me, it's a bit different. It's definitely, of course, one of their best, but it's for me, it's their second best. But Let Me Drown is maybe one of my favorite Soundgarden songs, and definitely a great album opener for this album. And 4th of July is pretty good too. That another song that I think is kind of underrated. But yeah, of course, you can't go wrong with the singles on this album, like Black Hole Sun and Spoon Man and Fell on Black Days. But you also have Mailman, which is another personal favorite of mine on the album. And Like Suicide is another pretty good song too. One of the highlights on the second half, in my opinion. But all around a pretty strong album, and probably one of the best albums from that grunge movement. But anyways, at the top, I got Badmotorfinger. Definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. This album is just all around a blast to listen to, and especially with the first half, but the second half is also pretty good too, especially with songs like Room 1,000 Years Wide, which is one of my all-time favorite Soundgarden songs. And you also have Holy Water and New Damage, which are also really good. We also have that shorter track, Drawing Flies, which is also a banger and definitely a blast to listen to. But with the first half, you get some of the band's best work with songs like Rusty Cage, Outshine, Slaves and Boulders, and Jesus Christ Posed. But the album does have its share of some underrated songs, like Somewhere and Room 1,000 Years Wide. But all around, this album is just excellent, and definitely my favorite Soundgarden album, and definitely, of course, one of my favorites from that grunge movement or grunge time or that period. But all around, a pretty strong album, and definitely, again, my favorite. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Do you agree with this ranking? Are there placements that you disagree or agree with? And again, of course, let me know your ranking in the comment section below and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a comment and like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.